Good evening from the News Radio, 1120 and 93.7 FM, KPNW studios. I'm Albert Einstein's underachieving cousin. You can tell by the hair. No, seriously, I'm Bill Lundun. I co-host the Wake Up Call, 6 a.m. to 9, Monday through Fridays on KPNW, streaming worldwide at kpnw.com. And we have listeners in China. We're able to look at the analytics. Tonight's news brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental, the guy that's going to put the new crown on my molar that should have had a crown a long time ago. And I'm going to get a crown made in the United States, meaning we know what it's actually made out of. Now think about that for a second and the implications. I'll let you squirm. All right, here's a look at some of the stories we're following here in Oregon that other states look at and go, yeah, we're kind of like that nephew that shows up at Thanksgiving that everyone goes, oh, they're here again. All right. So you may have heard that, yeah, Oregon's Department of Motor Vehicles registered well over 300 people that turned out to not be U.S. citizens, and Oregon registered them to vote. Now, the Secretary of State ordered updates to impacted voter registrations. Several lawmakers on both sides of the aisle called for a full investigation after Willamette Week initially uncovered, shall we say, mistakes with Oregon's motor voter system. Now, that's when anybody goes to get a driver's license, well, you get automatically registered to vote. And when that became law in Oregon, there were many people saying, well, yeah, what about people that are here in Oregon that aren't U.S. citizens? Are you going to register them to vote? And of course, state officials said, oh, that's not going to happen. Well, it is. Secretary of State LaVon Griffin-Vlad issues a statement saying an internal audit determined about 304 non-U.S. citizens were registered to vote. Now, mind you, this internal audit wasn't necessarily going through every single person on the voter roll. No, this was just a sample. All right. That means that the actual number is probably a lot higher. Now, what is known is that at least 2 of these people actually voted. And we know now that none of them will receive a ballot in the upcoming election. According to Griffin-Vlad, she said the, air quotes, mistake occurred when DMV staff misidentified the type of documentation presented by the person requesting a new driver's license or state ID. Now, DMV is working to verify all birth certificate-based voter registrations, which they say will take up to 2 weeks. The Secretary of State claims this analysis will be completed well before ballots are sent out to Oregonians to prevent what DMV calls the unlikely error from occurring again. DMV immediately instituted a prompt data entry screen ensuring that desk staff accurately entered citizenship information, and the agency developed a third step, which is daily auditing all transactions to verify materials are accurate before forwarding them to the Elections Division. Griffin-Vlad then praised automatic voter registration in her statement, saying it's helped thousands. Okay. Now, Republican lawmakers in Oregon sent a letter right after this was found out to Democratic Governor Tina Kotek saying that she needed to ensure the integrity of the state's voter rolls overall following the reports that at least 306 non-citizens had been mistakenly registered as voters since 2001. What's interesting is they didn't say what party they registered as. You see, when you get registered here to vote in Oregon, they ask you, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you Green Party? Are you independent? Are you non-decided? What are you? State and federal laws, of course, prohibit non-citizens from voting in any elections here in the U.S., and that includes people in the country that have legal status, like, for instance, they have a green card or a temporary worker. Now, in a letter emailed to Kotek's office, Oregon Republican Minority Leader Daniel Bonham said that she needed to consider implementing measures similar to those outlined in an executive order issued last month by Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. In that state, he directed state officials to certify the accuracy of the voter list by removing people who moved, people who died, people who couldn't verify their U.S. citizenship. Bonham said these measures are vital to enhancing public trust in the electoral process, ensuring that elections are fair, transparent, and secure. And Kotek did not respond, nor has she yet, nor likely will she ever. Now, the DMV, by the way, has said that while they're going through and checking everything, they expect to find additional errors of, well, people that shouldn't be registered to vote who were. And that's according to DMV spokesperson Chris Crabb. Okay, this has become an issue here in Oregon where the homeless are camping on public property and starting fires. And it's become an issue, particularly in central and eastern Oregon, in particular areas around Lapine and also Bend. Well, now we know that a transient who was squatting on another person's property set a fire this year that turned into an 18,300-acre wildfire. According to prosecutors, 51-year-old Christopher Meneely was indicted in a Wasco County grand jury, or in front of a Wasco County grand jury, on charges of second-degree arson and reckless burning. Meneely allegedly set fire to property in Wasco County while he was squatting there, which later became the Larch Creek Fire, which ultimately burned just shy of 18,300 acres and cost about $15 million to contain. The district attorney's office said that it was finally 100% contained in August after it was started, and Meneely was supposed to be in court this last Monday for arraignment, but he didn't appear. You see, that's another thing in Oregon. When you're arrested, unless you've essentially committed murder, you're not held on bond. That was passed by the legislature 2 years ago because, well, the bond system in Oregon is inequitable. Anyway, now he's at large. There's an issue that's been issued for his arrest, and do you think he will be? Probably not. Now, I think we've told you about issues in a town called Cottage Grove, which is about 20 minutes to the south of Eugene. And they had some major issues with a couple of homeless camps that were set up by the city council there. And because the city council set him up there, the majority of the city council was recalled a couple of months ago. Well, a homeless man in Cottage Grove is now facing sexual assault charges. The charges stem from a 14-year-old girl who told the Cottage Grove Police Department she was sexually assaulted at what's called the North Douglas Homeless Camp, which is right in downtown Cottage Grove. And she said it happened when she was visiting there with a friend and smoking meth. The friend, she said, left. The victim stayed and claims that Trevi Allen Thal, a homeless man, raped her. Now, he's been charged with second-degree sexual abuse and first-degree sodomy. He has pled not guilty. As a matter of fact, he told police he didn't rape the girl. He actually accused her of setting his bed on fire. We'll follow that case. So we have told you about the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and how they are ramming through and moving forward with essentially leasing about 200,000 acres off the Oregon coast in an area that is one of the most productive fisheries along the Pacific coast. Well, now the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians have decided they're just going to sue the federal government in an attempt to stop that offshore wind energy auctions that's scheduled to take place in October. The lawsuit challenges the U.S. Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's so-called environmental analysis and decision to proceed with the sale of leases to 2 offshore wind energy areas totaling a couple of 100,000 acres, one near Coos Bay and another near Brookings. The wind energy areas are within the tribal's ancestral territory, and the tribes can claim, and the suit claims, that that area contains critical fish and marine wildlife habitat, view sheds of significant cultural and historic significance, and that it's key tribal and commercial fishing grounds. So the agency, as always, declined to comment on the lawsuit. The agency also finalized the lease sale and its provisions 3 weeks ago, saying the auction will take place on October 15th. 4 out-of-state companies and 1 Oregon-based developer are going to bid on these leases. Maybe. The tribes say they want to stop the lease sale and force the Federal Bureau to conduct a full environmental analysis of how these massive floating offshore wind turbines would impact the marine environment and local fisheries off the Oregon coast. Now, the Federal Bureau's environmental analysis, which was released this summer, focused only on the environmental impact of surveys and site assessment activities, not environmental impacts when these gigantic windmills are built. It didn't look at the impact of constructing or operating these massive, never been done before any time in the world, massive wind turbines. It didn't take into account the placing of cables, massive anchors on the seafloor, construction of additional port and land-based infrastructure, none of that to support these wind farms. So the federal government urged the U.S. District Court and a judge in Portland Tuesday to block a proposed merger between Kroger and Albertsons, saying the combination would certainly benefit shareholders and not shoppers. Lawyers for the Federal Trade Commission gave their final closing arguments at the end of the 3-week hearing in Portland. The hearing has dived into all sorts of minutiae of each firm's pricing strategies, how closely they watch one another's sales, negotiations over labor union contracts, and the strength of CNS as a potential competitor. Now, one of the things that Kroger and Albertsons were planning on doing were spinning off a number of these grocery stores, and CNS was going to pick them up. They and also Piggly Wiggly. God, let it be Piggly Wiggly. I just like saying Piggly Wiggly. The decision before the judge in the case seems actually at this point of little consequence because the Federal Trade Commission says that, well, if they don't get what they want, likely they're going to appeal. Meanwhile, Kroger's attorneys indicated that if Nelson orders a delay, the companies would call off the deal altogether. And antitrust experts say that's common because fighting it's going to mean a lengthy and expensive legal battle. Nelson said, that's the judge, that she would work as quickly as possible to deliver a decision. You can pretty much figure one way or the other this might end up in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Okay, so this is probably the most amazing story of the week. And I'm sure you probably heard that likely Israel launched a pager attack on the terrorist group Hezbollah in Lebanon on Tuesday. And now it turns out today that Israel has kind of said, yeah, we did that because they believed that the capability had actually been discovered by Hezbollah. And according to an Israeli source familiar with national security, he said that the decision was made to explode them before word spread and everybody got rid of their pagers and that it was a use it or lose it moment. The pager attack, according to Israel, was not meant to escalate the tensions with Lebanon, but was a surgical strike on Hezbollah, according to the source. The source also noted the Iranian ties to Hezbollah, adding, you have to ask why the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was holding a Hezbollah beeper. All right, so that happened Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Lebanon, in particular, the terrorist group Hezbollah, was stunned by another wave of deadly attacks when their walkie-talkies started exploding. Now, Israel finally tacitly acknowledged its role in the shock operation, and with Israel saying a new era of the war was beginning. There were reports that folks in Lebanon, in particular Hezbollah, were telling its members don't use any electronic devices. As a matter of fact, reporters who were filming a funeral from the pager attacks was told to get rid of the camera and any cell phones because people were afraid they're going to explode. Okay, if it likely is Israel, I got to say, you've taken the exploding cigar gag to a completely different level. And likely you're going to be roundly excoriated for it, and in some cases you already are. But I know how you can regain the acceptance of the world. Make these things blow up. I'm serious. Now, figure out a way how to do it so no kids get hurt, and just do it. Yeah, we'll probably end up with a few ruined toy boxes and maybe some burned up Build-A-Bears, but trust me, you will be regarded positively by history if you blow these things up. I'm just saying, if you do it, there you go. And who knows, maybe Hezbollah, maybe Hezbollah loves these things. You're gonna take care of business. All right. This look at the news brought to you by Dr. Michael Bradland, and now it is time for Rick to get real.